Picture this, the year 2000, I was a senior in high school in Portland, Oregon, sitting in my marine biology class. Yeah, I was lucky enough to have a marine biology class my senior year of high school. We had an acrylic 120-gallon Fowler tank with these T5 bulbs that put out a crazy amount of heat and salt creep everywhere for days. Somehow we convinced our young marine bio teacher to let us leave school during the day, mind you, drive in our car to the local fish store, pick out a fish, and bring it back. We did it, we brought it back, and we plopped it straight in the tank, no drip acclimation of course, and what happened? Well, the triggerfish that was already living in there immediately went and ate the other fish. We obviously did not choose the right fish, but today we're going to teach you how to. Assalamu alaikum everybody, Matthew here, your BRS beginner guru, coming at you with episode 30. I cannot believe we've done 30 episodes and we only have around 15 left in the series before we move on to something new. But we're coming at you with episode 30 this week in the beginner how-to guide for saltwater aquariums and reef tanks. The 9 characteristics that are going to help you choose the right saltwater fish. Unfortunately, you can't just add whatever saltwater fish you want to your tank. Some are going to be too big, some are going to be too aggressive, others might just be finicky eaters. So before we get to the 9 beginner fish characteristics, we need to talk about a few broad categories first. First up is temperament. You can generally put all fish into one of 3 temperament categories: community fish, semi-aggressive fish, and aggressive fish. Community fish are just those fish that play nice with other fish. They're not going to eat other fish, they're not going to attack other fish, they're not going to pester other fish. Now that being said, a community fish could still go after your corals and other inverts, but when we're saying community, we really mean they're going to live peacefully with other members of their community. That doesn't mean you can put in as many as you want, because a community fish may be a good member of a tank if there's only one of them, but there are other community fish members where you can put in an entire school. The second temperament type for fish are semi-aggressive fish. I don't know if this is the majority of fish out there, but it might be the majority of fish available in the saltwater hobby. These fish you can put in a community tank with caution. They have been known to go after other fish. So you're going to have to take into consideration their size, how many of them you're going to put, and what other fish you're going to put in the tank. A perfect example of this are clownfish. You can put 1 or 2 clownfish in your aquarium and generally they'll do fine. But even if you put 1 or 2 clownfish in your tank, that's no guarantee that they're not going to attack other fish. Now, they're not going to actively go out and hunt down other fish, but they are going to defend their territory. And their territory can be 2 feet in any direction. So once they find their spot, they're going to defend that territory and pester other fish. And lastly, you have aggressive fish. If you're going to put aggressive fish in a tank, think lionfish and triggerfish here, you have to build the entire tank around them because these fish are carnivores and they will eat other fish. I made the mistake not too long ago, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I got a small triggerfish, put him in my quarantine tank, and he immediately went after fish way bigger than himself and pecked at them and eventually ate them. So you need to be careful when adding aggressive fish, and you can only add aggressive fish into a tank where all the other fish are not its prey. Next up is the habitat of every fish. Every type of fish out there likes to live in a different environment. Some are free swimmers and they'll just swim in the water column. Others like to live either on the sand bed or in the sand bed. And some of them are hiders and they're going to live inside your rockwork. It's important to consider the habitat for the fish because while you may be able to put 5 to 10 fish in a 40-gallon tank, you probably can't put 5 to 10 fish that all inhabit the same ecosystem. So you're going to have to separate. Some of them are going to be free swimmers, some of them are going to be sand bed dwellers, and others are going to live in the rockwork. Free swimmers like chromis, anthias, cardinal fish, they can often go in schools and they're really fun to watch because they will be out and about all the time in your water column, so you can see them pretty much any time of day. Sandbed dwellers, gobies and wrasses are some of the most common. Wrasses will oftentimes sleep in a sandbed or dive into a sandbed if they feel threatened. And gobies are fantastic. These ones you can see living with pistol shrimp underneath rockwork, and there's also sand sifting gobies that will help keep the sandbed clean. And then you have fish that live in the rockwork. Now, I'm not saying that these fish are never going to come out. They are going to come out, but they often will live in there, sleep in there, and protect their certain area. A great example of this would be eels. They love to live in the rockwork, but they're going to come out to feed and such. They're just not going to be free swimmers. Then you have things like clownfish that while they don't necessarily live in the rockwork, they'll choose a certain area and usually defend that. The next category is reef compatibility. Really, you have reef safe with caution, not reef safe. And I would throw in a fourth category, will eat hermit crabs, snails, and shrimp. Reef safe fish are those fish that are not going to eat your corals. Think clownfish, gobies, and tangs. If you want to have any sort of reef tank that has corals, then you're going to have to choose only fish that are reef safe. Then you have reef safe with caution. These fish can be hit or miss. You can have a fish that will never ever touch your corals, or you can have fish that just love to feast on corals. The thing about reef safe with caution is you're really going to have to watch that fish and then remove it if it does eat your corals. But a lot of things are going to affect this. If you have a reef-safe fish that seems to be eating your corals, maybe that fish is hungry and you're not feeding that fish quite enough. So if you just up the feedings a little bit, it would stop going after your corals. So if you do want to keep corals in your tank, you can get reef-safe with caution, but you're going to need to keep your eye on them and make sure they're well fed so they don't go after the corals. Then of course you have your not reef-safe fish. If you want to keep corals, do not buy a fish that is not reef-safe. It will eat them. And then the fish that are going to eat your inverts, your snails, your shrimp, your hermit crabs. I mean, there's several species out there that are going to do this, and you have a couple options here. You can add them to your tank, but just know that occasionally they are going to feast on those invertebrates, so you'll likely have to restock those from time to time. A lot of wrasses fall into this category, but they're so gorgeous and they're so fun to watch that I like to get them anyways, and basically what that means for me is that I know they're going to go after those inverts, so I'm going to have to restock them a little bit more than I would otherwise. Moving on to the heart of the matter, the 9 characteristics of a beginner fish. The first characteristic is hardiness. A hardy fish is just a tough fish. It seems to be able to survive and do well no matter what we throw at it. A really good example of a hardy fish is a clownfish. Clownfish are great beginner fish due in part to their hardiness. You can mess up your salinity a little bit, you can mess up other water parameters, and that fish still seems to thrive. So a hardy fish is one that is perfect for beginners because it is not going to die with simple mistakes that beginners make. The second characteristic of a beginner fish is an inexpensive fish. Now, I get there might be some beautiful fish out there that are expensive that are great beginner fish because they're super hardy, but why would you risk it if you're a beginner? Mistakes are often made in that first year and well beyond, of course. If you're to spend a lot of money for a fish, if that fish is to die, it could not only be heartbreaking to see that fish die, but it can also take a big hit on your pocketbook and really set you back in the hobby. So when you're starting out, I really recommend buying inexpensive fish. The third characteristic of a beginner fish is a fish that is easy to find. These are fish that you're going to see all the time when you go into your local fish store or online. Either they're really plentiful in the oceans or there's really good captive breeding programs. You'll know which fish I'm talking about by just going to your local fish store every week for a few weeks. You're going to see the same kinds of fish in there. You're going to see chromises, you're going to see gobies, you're going to see wrasses, you're going to see clownfish. Those are good beginner fish. The fourth characteristic is a fish that acclimates well. There are some fish that you can probably just dump in the tank. You'd never do this, of course, but you can probably just dump them in the tank and they're going to do fine. And there are other fish, and I'm thinking here of anthias, that are terrible acclimators. Oh, also chromis. I have had so many anthias and so many chromis that I have done the most careful drip acclimation process after bringing them home, and they still die within the first few days. Something about transferring them from one tank to another stresses them out, and they just seem to die for no reason. So make sure to get a fish that drip acclimates well. Characteristic number 5 is very similar. It's a fish that ships well. Now you might be saying, but I'm going to buy it from a local fish store, so I don't need to worry about that. Well, how do you think the fish got there in the first place? In order for those fish to get to the United States, those fish have to be caught, have to be shipped generally around the world. They arrive at a facility. If you're out west here, it's usually in the Los Angeles area. From there, they are then shipped again to your local fish store. So they've already gone through several different shippings, and shipping is really stressful to the fish. So if you can get a fish that historically has shipped well, that's a good beginner option. The sixth characteristic is captive bred. There are just so many benefits to buying a captive bred fish over buying a fish that is pulled from the ocean. Not only is there sourcing issues, ethical issues, but captive bred fish are raised in a tank. They know what that's like. There's no disease in that tank, and they usually accept any kind of prepared food. Take, for example, a mandarin dragonet. If you get a live caught mandarin dragonet, it could be a super finicky eater and only eat certain kinds of copepods and maybe some amphipods. But if you buy a mandarin dragonet that is tank tank raise, oftentimes, probably not oftentimes, all the time, they are only raised with pellet food or flake food or prepared frozen foods. So when you get them home, they are going to immediately accept those foods. The 7th characteristic of a beginner fish is small in size. Yeah, it's just better because you can get a lot more of them. If you have a standard 20 to 40 gallon tank, you're not going to put any more than 5 to 8 fish in that tank. And if you get bigger fish, that number goes way down. So buy species that typically don't get too large and you'll be able to have more. I mean, you might be saying, well, I could buy this really small tank for my 40 gallon tank, but that tank will grow so quickly that you're going to have to move it. I had this really beautiful fox-faced rabbitfish and I loved it. And I bought it when I had a 120 gallon tank and it was small. Then I had to downsize it. I put it in a 40 gallon tank and within a year it grew so big that I had to give it away. Luckily, I found a good home for it, but I hated having to do that, and it was extra stressful for that fish having to move it an extra time. So a good beginner characteristic are fish that don't grow too big. The 8th characteristic of beginner fish are peaceful community fish. Yes, you can definitely add some semi-aggressive fish in there, clownfish being prime examples, but if you just stick with peaceful fish, it's going to reduce a lot of that anxiety that you have wondering whether or not you're choosing the correct fish. A really good way to find out which fish are peaceful fish, go to something like aliveaquaria.com and you can search by fish and it will tell you if it's peaceful, semi-aggressive, or aggressive. And the 9th and final category of a beginner fish is a fish that accepts prepared foods, whether that's frozen, flake, or pellet. There are some beautiful fish out there, and let's take something like the copper band butterfly fish as an example. One of the most beautiful fish to have in your tank, but they are expert only because they are super finicky eaters and they need to eat constantly. So if a beginner buys this fish, it's probably just going to starve to death. A good beginner fish will accept a wide range of food and they'll accept it heartily. So if you're looking for a fish, ask your local fish store or check online to see if it will accept prepared foods or if it's a finicky eater. And definitely stay away from any fish that's either a finicky eater or that won't accept prepared foods. Obviously, there's a lot more when it comes to picking the right fish, and the best advice I can give you is find a local fish store that you trust and then pick their brains. They deal with fish every single day and they are a treasure trove of information. Well, don't think we are even remotely done at talking about fish in this series, because next episode, episode 31, we are going to do the ever popular top 10 beginner fish as chosen by me. And as always, everybody, thank you for watching. Happy reefing, be well. We'll see you next time.